Wow, more buckets of blood than a Dick Miller movie. What did you think about this week's episode of My Hero Academia? Leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you shortly. Whilst you're there, be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today, it will do them a power of good. And if we can get to 64 subscribers, I'll do a playthrough of My Hero 1 Justice for the channel once this season is over. Between then and now, let's get on to the review. Okay, so this week's episode is a marked improvement over last week's. That isn't to say that I didn't like last week's episode, it's just that it felt a little bit more of a come down in comparison to the episodes that have come before it. As a whole, I did enjoy it, but it just didn't quite have the same level of oomph as the other episodes have had done, and this week we're back into oomph territory. This is a truly fantastic episode, an episode which is at times rather unnerving and terribly uncomfortable, but in the best possible way. This is an episode where we learn a lot more about our villains, which is something that I'm always in favour of. It just so happens that we learn about them in some rather messed up ways that feel a little bit too messed up for this time in the morning. Now granted, it's not as messed up as some of the other shows and movies that I've watched over the years, but at this time of day, when you're sat there with a cup of tea and a bowl of porridge on your lap, it hits a little bit differently. If we had to take a moment though to just level a minor possible complaint with the episode before we get into talk about how fantastic it is, I do feel that this is an episode which rode a very fine line as far as its structure and pacing. This is an episode which was a very fast-paced episode, however almost as soon as any kind of flashback or cutaway came along, which as fantastic as those moments were, often they felt as though they had a very different pace to what was surrounding it. As such, you often had these very sudden, sharp gear shifts. Something that's very fast-paced into something that's rather slow, then back to something fast-paced into something rather slow again. And the issue is that that creates a sense for me as though it felt as though this episode could have just turned into a hot mess at any given moment. That it was just a couple of strides away from just completely falling on itself like a house of cards or like a spinning plate or whatever analogy you want to use. Now, miraculously, EA was able to stick the landing, even if there were moments within the episode where it just felt like, right, this is it, the episode's going to turn into a hot mess, and this is, regardless of the quality of the writing therein, it's just going to be unwatchable. Thankfully, that wasn't the case, though it was really touch and go in some moments. If we actually turn back and actually talk about the positives of the episode, I really did enjoy learning about Toga and her backstory. It was the best possible way that you could deal with this kind of subject matter and a character like this. It was truly fantastic, made all the more so in the way that it was told to us. We never got the full story, just bits of it, snapshots of it, just sudden cuts of it, reflective of what Blue Lady Group had discovered in her little journalistic endeavours with her, as well as from Toga's own mental state. This isn't quite the concept of the unreliable author, though it is it's approximately in that same kind of neighbourhood. This is an episode where we're discovering a lot more about her in a way which is sinister and at times horrifying, in a way that shows just how messed up of a person that she actually is at this point. Something that if we are going to step out of the episode for the moment, something that I've really disliked about Toga and how she's seen by the wider fandom is how she's become Stabby McWaifu for so many people. Even though she's a murderous psychopath who would more likely kill you than anything else, she is not just the quirky goth chick from your class, she's someone who would quite happily just gut you from stern to bow and not really give a damn about it. And this is an episode that shows that no matter how many OC hugs and kisses that you're going to give her, she's never going to be really sane again. It really shows the character in a terribly unflattering light, and in a way which is oftentimes just disturbing more than anything else. Which is something I really do appreciate for the aforementioned reasons, and of course it's just brilliantly put together. Even if we didn't have this wider appreciation of her in the fandom of her, how it is delivered is in a way which is genuinely intriguing. It's an episode which often at times just feels rather discombobulated, rather disorientating, which is apt given what's happening with the episode itself. They are being ambushed by 100,000 people from all angles. There never really is a moment for anyone to take stock and understand what's happening to them, so that when we get to backstory moments like hers and with the stuff with Tomura, which again was done very well, it's stuff which just feels hard to get a full grasp on. The Tomura stuff especially, and that's mostly due to the fact that he is at this point just hallucinating from just pure exhaustion, but it's all stuff that he's delivered to us in a very exciting and a very innovative way. Delivering character development, backstories, exposition is something that you have to do very, very carefully whenever you're writing anything. You don't want it to just feel like, alright, now I'm just going to sit here and tell you about my life story. Once upon a time, you don't want anything like that. And how this episode treats teaching us about the backstory of some of our cast members is done in a very organic and fleshed out way, which I feel gives me a better understanding of the characters, even if I'm not exactly going to want to go out for a pint with some of them anytime soon. On the wider sense of the episode, this was a great episode for us to get an education as to who exactly the Meta Liberation Army is. We learned a lot more about their origins, how they came into existence, as well as what the world was like at the dawn of Quirks. Something that I've been really wanting to see for such a long time now, because I'm genuinely fascinated by that, and maybe I have a video in the works where I discuss that a little bit more, but that won't be till after this season is concluded. Though it's safe to say that this group really do believe in their mantra. This isn't some kind of a ruse, as I thought it was going to be, some kind of scam so they could make themselves rich beyond all compare. No, they genuinely believe this to a near dogmatic and religious point of view, and it's honestly rather terrifying, but at the same time, I'm not sure how their big plan would work if it's anything like this, because this stuff with the League of Villains, it just kind of feels a little bit of a dry run for what they would do when their big day of reckoning happens. And if these guys can get their arse handed to them by what are... Well, they are going to get their arse handed to them, because I don't think they're going to kill off characters that we know have actually survived, because this is a few weeks and months in the past of this season. You know, we know that they're not going to get defeated. The League of Villains aren't going to get defeated. So if they could get defeated by a bunch of barely trained villains, what the hell are they going to do when they start going against pro heroes? Now, to be fair though, it turns out there's not many pro heroes left at this moment, as is evidenced by the fact they're willing to put school children out on the streets to protect people. But you know, I think this whole endeavour might have just collapsed in on itself actually if it were to happen, but, you know, I don't know. I'm not some kind of military plan or anything like this, so we'll move on. Again, fantastic to learn a bit more about them, to really get into the nitty-gritty of them, as well as a number of our characters, and no doubt next week we'll get a lot more of that for some of the characters who we haven't had much on. I think from watching the preview, they're going to do a little bit more with Twice next week, which will be interesting. I'm interested to see how all this stuff wraps up, even if the little flash earlier in the season gives us a bit of an idea where this is going to go, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Alright, now we're going to do, for the first time ever, Comment Corner, where I discuss some of the comments that you've given me over the past week or so. So we'll start off with Decay, who says, I like this ep. So do I. I really enjoyed last week's episode. Not quite as much as some of the episodes that have gone before it and since it, but it was a great change of pace and something I just really enjoyed seeing. I liked seeing a little bit more about our villains and getting to know about how they ticked. This week we do a lot better than that, but still, good episode all around. It gets a thumbs up from me. Our next comment comes from Dinosaur Time and Funny Videos. They say it is one of the story arcs within the original manga. I am aware that the My Villain Academia stuff is stuff that's in the manga. I just want to say I don't think I properly articulated myself in the previous review. You see, when I first started to cover and watch this show, I heard a lot of speculation in there being another spin-off in the vein of Vigilantes, a third series that we're popping up which would be centred around villains and that it would be called My Villain Academia. Turns out that speculation was wrong, and by extension I myself was wrong, as it turned out that was just going to be the name of this particular arc within the manga itself. So I was wrong, even though I mentioned it for a good few previous reviews, but sorry for any confusion as far as that is concerned, but hell, great to see you commenting. And our final comment today comes from Scott TV Gamer. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing because we're starting to run short on time, but they discuss about adaptation, about how well or not this series is adapting its source material, and about the debate surrounding it, and how I, like probably a lot of people, should just enjoy it for what it is. Now, I thank them for the comment, and I feel that as regards this topic matter is concerned, I can't really comment on how well or not it's adapting its source material, as I don't have a lot of interaction with that. the matter of adaptation itself is something that we could quite easily spend a whole video discussing about, but for my money here and now, the truth of the matter is that there's always going to be stuff that has to be dropped, cut or abridged between adaptations, from taking it from its source material to another medium. And whilst I have had issues in how this show has been structured and how individual episodes have been structured, as it feels it's a little bit too close to being an adaptation of the manga structurally, I feel that in parties could also be argued away. You know, it's a 20-minute TV show, they've got to do what they can. I really do enjoy this program, it has to be said, and there's nothing about it which ever sticks out as being that was probably different in the manga, as has been the case with certain other programs. There's a program that I watched about a year ago called Lock and Key, which is an adaptation of a Joe Hill graphic novel, and it was obvious that that show just wasn't reflective of its source material. With this show, it's obvious that it is, even though there might be some things that are slightly different. Of course, this is an entire series, an entire program, which I've never had an episode which I've hated. Though I would be curious if there's anyone out there who has an episode that they don't like for whatever reason. Even if they hate it, you know, let me know in the comment section down below. Now, that is it for Comment Corner. That is it for us today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all so very much. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, and do all that YouTubey stuff. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!